excited, and I'm so grateful and thankful, but basically excited that I have two patrons, two patrons, two of you lovely people, two patrons, namely Ashley, and Schyler, and Ashley. Now they have decided to support me on my Patreon page, my Patreon page, where they get a sticker, and they get to support me. So I have sent you guys an email. I've sent you an email, and I'm doing you a shout out of your name, Ashley, and Schyler, in this video. And this sticker will be on its way to you by the time you see this video. This sticker will be on its way to you. Hopefully it won't take too long. But I do want to just okay, I'm trying not to be too excited because I tend to get a little bit noisy, I suppose, when I get very, very excited. But thank you so much. So Ashley Martin, Ashley, you Ashley are my very first Patreon, my first real Patreon, my first real patron on Patreon, because I had my brother, he was my patron, but literally because I asked him to make sure that it worked, and that was like a long time ago, and he's been on there ever since, but actually he hasn't given me any money, so fun times. but you, Ashley, I'm so grateful for you. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Ashley. Thanks, Ashley. And then, not long after you, after Ashley came Schyler, Ashley Bailey, two first names, Ashley Bailey and Schyler Martin, also two first names, different genders though. Schyler, you are very, very, very supportive, and I thank you so much. Thank you, Schyler. I hope I'm saying these names correctly, hey? I'm so sorry if I'm not. I'm sorry, Schyler. I'm pretty sure Ashley is right, but Schyler, hopefully it's Schyler. If it's not, let me know, and I will work on my pronunciation and remake a video for you. Okay, Schyler. Okay, Schyler. Okay. I hope you don't mind. Do you mind? It is in the perks. It is in the tier. The tier list does have that I will shout out your name in a video, so I hope you don't mind. Schyler and Ashley. So, I thought I would go into a little bit more detail about, not my patron, but the name behind the patron, which is the Willow-Whispers. If you watched my last video about my stickers, and I mentioned my Patreon account there, which Ashley and Schyler, which Schyler and Ashley and Schyler found. Thankfully, thank you. I'm just so ecstatic that you would want to help. Support me. That you would want my things that I make and enjoy the things that I make. So I feel very chuffed and honoured and appreciative and just thankful. So thank you again. Thank you. Okay, stop being so excited, Span. Come on. Okay, so yes, I mentioned that I called the tier Willow-Whispers because of the Will-o'-the-Wisp. Sorry, the Will-o'-the-Wisp, which we say really quickly. It sounds like Willow-Whispers, and I really like saying it. I think it's a little bit triggery. Willow-Whisper. So, the Will-o'-the-Wisp. What is that? I vaguest explanation on my last video, so I thought I would take from Harry's. I'm stealing Harry's idea, and I'm gonna read you a Wikipedia. Let me just find what Harry's some readings ASMR. Go check out Harry from Some Readings ASMR. I'm just realizing now that I actually have watched a lot of his videos and haven't commented on any of them. Not a single one, and I feel bad about that, so I'm gonna go do that after this. But he does Wikipedia readings, right? And I love them. I love them so much. So I thought I would do a Wikipedia reading on my phone about the Will-o'-the-Whispers. The Will-o'-the-Wisp. About Will-o'-whispers. Will-o'-whispers. About you, Ashley. About you, Schyler. Ashley, Schyler. So, let's just pull that up on my phone. Wikipedia. Do you ever just not know what you're doing? I feel very out of my depth. Literally Googling Wikipedia, that doesn't seem right. Okay. Will-o'-the-wisp. Okay, so I'm gonna read this article to you. I'm gonna whisper it. Are you ready? Are you ready, Ashley? Are you ready, Ashley? Are you ready, Schyler? Are you ready, Schyler? Are you ready, Schyler? Ashley, Schyler. Alright, so the Will-o'-the-wisp. I also have this image in my head of a weeping willow tree whispering in the wind over the river, which is actually almost a scene identical down near the river, just down here in my river. The river on my river frontage, the Murrumbidgee River frontage on the property that I live in has a willow that whispers over the front. I might do an artwork. I might do an oil painting, like a real one, like a real oil painting. Anyway, off topic. Will-o'-the-wisp in folklore. A will-o'-the-wisp, or ignis fatuus, Latin for giddy flame, is an atmospheric ghost light seen by travellers at night, especially over bogs, swamps, or marshes. So, here's what I'm imagining. I am the traveller. I'm travelling into this unknown of ASMR and making videos and being on the internet a lot and being a content creator, and I'm seeing and following. So this ASMR, right, is the bog or swamp of the internet. Like, there's a lot of bad things on the internet, but there's good things, and you're the good thing, and I'm following you, and you're the will-o'-the-wisp. You're the one leading me through the marshy depths of what it is to be a content creator on the internet. So I'm here for you. That's my imagining. So now, with that hopefully all set up and understood in your mind, let me go into the weird, quirky, spoopy sort of backstory of what a will-o'-the-wisp actually is. And keep in mind that there is nothing negative about you. You are amazing, Ashley and Schyler. There's nothing negative about any of my viewers. I'm very pro this relationship that we have going on. So, let's continue. The phenomenon is known in English folk belief, English folklore, and much of European folklore by a variety of names, including jack-o'-lantern, the jack-o'-lantern, friar's lantern, Inky Punk. I should have named it Inky Punk. And hobby lantern, and is said to mislead travellers by resembling a flickering lamp or lantern. In literature, the will-o'-the-wisp metaphorically refers to a hope or a goal that leads one on, but is impossible to reach, or something that one finds sinister, something that one finds sinister or confounding. But I also think that being led on by hope is not necessarily a bad thing. So that might be just the way my brain works, but still. And to be pursuit of an impossible goal is the word quixotic, chaotic, con chaotic, and I love that word. I love it so much. I haven't actually read the windmill story, but I'm going to, and I'm very, very much considering getting a tattoo about it. But anyway, I should read it first. So. The will-o'-the-wisp appears in folklore tales, folktales, traditional legends of numerous countries and cultures. Notable will-o'-the-wisp include St. Louis Light in Saskatchewan, the Spook Light in northwestern Missouri. Sorry if I'm saying these words wrong. Marfa Lights of Texas, the Naga Fireballs on the Mekong in Thailand, the Balding Light in Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and the Hessdalen Light in Hessdalen Night in Norway. While urban legends, folklore, and superstition typically attribute the will-o'-the-wisps to ghosts, fairies, or elemental spirits. Modern science explains them as natural phenomena, and natural phenomena such as bioluminescence, or chemiluminescence. So, bio is biological and chemical is chemical luminescence. Caused by the oxidization of phosphine, diphosphane, and methane produced by organic decay. You're wonderful, you're not decaying, don't worry. Etymology, not the study of plants or insects. Entomology. The term will-o'-the-wisp comes from... hang on, I gotta turn the things off. We should not get any more interference. We should not. Okay. The term will-o'-the-wisp comes from wisp, a bundle of sticks or paper, sometimes used as a torch, and the name will, thus meaning will of the torch. The term jack-o'-lantern, jack of the lantern, originally referred to as a will-o'-the-wisp, will-o'-the-wisp in the United States. They are often called spook lights, ghost lights, or simply orbs by folklorists and paranormal enthusiasts. The Latin name Ignis Fatuus is composed of ignis meaning fire and fatuus, an adjective meaning foolish, silly, or simple. It can thus be literally translated into English as foolish fire. I'm following the foolish fire. I'm not calling you foolish, even though I think that's a compliment. Seriously, sincerely. It can thus be literally translated into English as foolish fire, or more idiomatically, giddy flame. So giddy to me is such a positive thing. Giddy, to be giddy, is a really positive thing. And flame, obviously, fire. So that's good too. In certain contexts, and this is a context in which it is good. So, despite its Latin origins, the term Ignis Fatuus is not attested in antiquity, and that the ancient Romans called it the will-o'-the-wisp may be unknown. The Latin word fatuus, pronunciation factus, is not immediately related to the word fate, which is from a Latin fata, Latin pronunciation fata, in turn the plural of fatum, which in Latin has a different pronunciation of the letter A in the stem. Instead, in English, it is directly related to the word infatuate. I'm infatuated with you, I'm infatuated with you. I'm infatuated with you, Ashley. Schyler, I am infatuated with you. It is thought that both are ultimately from the Proto-Indo-European root to speak, as fatus in the archaic literal sense of being able to speak of the things yet to happen was originally associated with the Roman god Faunus. The semantic shift to silly would have been pejorative in nature, as such foretellings of the future would come to be regarded by the ancient Romans. Now see, in my mind, the ancient Romans didn't think future telling was silly, but who am I to judge the ancient Romans? Okay, so the will-o'-the-wisp, folk belief attributes the phenomenon. This is folklore, by the way. We've moved on. We're into folklore now. Folk belief attributes the phenomenon to fairies or elemental spirits explicitly in the term hobby lanterns. Found in the 19th century Denham Tracts in her book A Dictionary of Fairies, K.M. Briggs provides an extensive list of other names for the same phenomenon, though the place they are observed, like graveyards or bogs, etc., influences the naming considerably. When observed in graveyards, they are known as ghost candles, also a term from the Denham Tracts. The names will-o'-the-wisp and jack-o'-lantern are used in etiological folktales recorded in many variant forms in Ireland, Scotland, Wales, Appalachia, and Newfoundland. In these tales, the protagonists, named either Will or Jack, are doomed to haunt the marshes with a light for some misdeed. One version from Shropshire really, is recounted by Briggs in a dictionary of fairies and refers to Will Smith. It refers to Will Smith, a wicked blacksmith who is given a second chance by St. Peter at the gates of heaven, but leads such a bad life that he ends up being doomed to wander the earth. The devil provides him with a single burning coal with which to warm himself, which he then uses to lure foolish travellers into the marshes. I am the foolish traveller. The internet is the marshes, and you are my guiding light. An Irish version of the tale has a ne'er-do-well named Drunk Jack or Stingy Jack, who, when the devil comes to collect his soul, tricks him into turning into a coin so he can pay for his one last drink. When the devil obliges, Jack places him in the pocket next to a crucifix, preventing him from returning to his original form. In exchange for his freedom, the devil grants Jack 10 more years of life. When the term expires, the devil comes to collect his due, but Jack tricks him again by making him climb a tree and then carving a cross underneath, preventing him from climbing down. In exchange for removing the cross, the devil forgives Jack's debt. However, no one as bad as Jack would ever be allowed into heaven, so Jack is forced upon his death to travel to hell and ask for a place there, but the devil denies him entrance in revenge, but grants him an ember from the fires of hell to light his way through the twilight world, to which lost souls are forever condemned. So that's a bit harsh. Jack places it in a carved turnip to serve as a lantern. Bit harsh, you're not a hellfire, and I'm gonna be okay. Another version of the folktale is Willie the Wisp, related in Irish Folktales by Henry Glassy, Siadna by Beata Au Lagoher, is yet another version, and also the first modern novel in the Irish language. Interesting. Now we're moving on to the Americas. Mexico has two equivalents as well. In one, they are called brujas, witches. Folklore explains the phenomenon to be witches who transformed into these lights. The reason for this, however, varies according to the region. Another explanation refers to the lights as indicators to places where gold or hidden treasures are buried, which can be found only with the help of children. In this one, they are called luces del dinero, money lights, or luces del tesoro, treasure lights. The swampy area of Massachusetts, known as the Bridgewater Triangle, has folklore of ghostly orbs of light, and there have been modern observation of these ghost lights in this area as well. The feu follet of Louisiana derives from the French. The legend says that the feu follet is a soul sent back from the dead to do God's penance, but instead attacks people for vengeance. While it mostly takes part in harmless, mischievous acts, the feu follet sometimes sucks the blood of children. Some legends say it was the soul of a child who died before baptism. Interesting. The will-o'-the-wisp is a part of the folklore in Brazil, Argentina, Colombia, Venezuela, and Uruguay. Portuguese word, is the Brazilian equivalent to the will-o'-the-wisp. Regionally, it is called boiatata, baiatata, batata, bitata, batateo, biatata, megboya guacacu, mebotata, and mebeatata. The names comes from the old Tupi language and means fiery serpent. Sorry about the butchering of the old language, I'm really bad at languages when I haven't heard them before. Its great fiery eyes leave it almost blind by day, but by night it can see everything. According to legend, the boiatata was a big serpent which survived the Great Deluge. A boiguacu, a cave anaconda, left its cave after the deluge, and in the dark went through the fields preying on the animals and corpses, eating exclusively its favourite morsel. The eyes. I'm so sorry, this is horrible. I should have read the whole way through before I started reading this to you. My bad. The collected light from the eaten eyes gave Potaita its fiery gaze, not really a dragon, but a giant snake, in the native language boa or maboa or maboa. In Argentina and Uruguay, the will-o'-the-wisp phenomenon is known as las mala, evil light, and is one of the most important myths in both countries of folklores. The phenomenon is quite vivid and is mostly seen in rural areas. It consists of an extremely shiny ball of light floating a few inches off the ground. In Colombia, La Candelacha is the will-o'-the-wisp ghost of a vicious grandmother who raised her children without morals, and as such they became thieves and murderers, and in the afterlife the grandmother's spirit was condemned to wander the world surrounded in flames. No pressure, grandma. In Trinidad and Tobago, a soikoyant is a fireball witch, that is literally a witch that takes on the form of a flame at night. This spirit is, like the other versions, evil. It enters homes through any gap it can find and drinks the blood of its victims. It sounds like a vampire. Low-key. Asia. Alea, or marsh ghost light, is the name given to a strange light phenomenon occurring over the marshes as observed by Bengalis, especially the fishermen of West Bengal and Bangladesh. This marsh light is attributed to some kind of marsh gas apparitions that confuse fishermen, make them lose their bearings, and may even lead to drowning if one decided to follow them into the moving over the marshes. Local communities in the region believe that these strange offering marsh lights are in fact ghost lights representing the ghosts of fishermen who died while fishing. Sometimes they confuse the fishermen and sometimes they help them avoid future dangers. Alright, Chiabati, ghost light, also spelled Sheherbati or Chiabati, is a strange dancing light phenomenon occurring on the dark nights reported by the Bangni grasslands, its seasonal marshy wetlands, and the adjoining deserts of the marshy salt flats of the Rann of Kutch, near Indo-Pakistani border in Kutch district, Gujarat state, India. Local villagers have been seeing these sometimes hovering, sometimes flying balls of light since time immemorial, and call it the Chiabati in their Kutchi Sindhi language, with Chia meaning ghost and Bati meaning light, ghost light. Similar phenomena are described in Japanese folklore, including Hitodama, literally human soul, as a ball of energy, Hinotama, a ball of flame, Aburage, Komonbi, Yushionnibi, etc. All these phenomena that are described as balls of flame or light are sometimes associated with graveyards, but occurring across Japan as a whole in a wide variety of situations and locations. Kitsune, mythical yokai demons are also associated with the will-o'-the-wisp, with the marriage of two kitsune producing kitsune B, meaning foxfire. These phenomena are described in the Shigeru Mizuki's 1985 book of Graphic World of Japanese Phantoms. Moving on to Europe. In European folklore, these lights are believed to be spirits of the dead, fairies, or a variety of other supernatural beings which attempt to lead travellers to their demise. Sometimes the lights are believed to be the sprites of unbaptized or stillborn children flitting between heaven and hell. This is not cheery. My bad. In Sweden, the will-o'-the-wisp represents the soul of an unbaptized person trying to lead travellers to water in the hope of being baptized. Leading me to water is excellent. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. amongst some other groups, believed that the will-o'-the-wisp also marked the location of a treasure deep in ground or water, which could be taken only when the fire was there. Sometimes magical tricks and even a dead man's hand were required as well to uncover the treasure. In Finland, several other northern countries, it was believed that early autumn was the best time to search for the will-o'-the-wisps and treasures below them. It was believed that when someone hid treasure in the ground, he made the treasure available only on the St. John's Day, and set the will-o'-the-wisp to mark the exact place and time that he could come back and take the treasure back, for then he would be fulfilled with treasures. The in Finnish mythology are spots where the eternal flame associated with the will-o'-wisps burn. They are claimed to mark the places where fairy gold is buried. They are protected by a glamour that would prevent anyone finding them by pure chance. However, if one finds a fern seed from a mythical flowering fern, the magical properties of that seed will lead the fortunate person to these treasures, in addition to providing one with glamour of invisibility. Since in reality the fern produces no flower and reproduces via spores under the leaves, the myth specifies that it blooms only extremely rarely. Britain. The will-o'-the-wisp can also be found in numerous folktales around the United Kingdom and is often a malicious character in the stories. The Welsh folklore, it is said that the light is fairy fire held in the hand of a bwca, a small goblin-like fairy that mischievously leads lone travellers off the beaten path at night. The traveller follows the bwca through the marsh or bog. The fire is extinguished, leaving them lost. The bwca is said to be one of the Tylwyth Teg, or fairy family in Wales. The light predicts a funeral that will take place soon in the locality. Wed Seeks, in his book British Goblins, mentions the following Welsh tale about bwca. You're ready for a tale? We have to up the table. One moment. Alright, French one, Welsh fairy tale ready. A peasant, travelling home at dusk, sees a bright light travelling along ahead of him. Looking closer, he sees that the light is a lantern held by a dusky little figure, which he follows for several miles. All of a sudden, he finds himself standing on the edge of a vast chasm with a roaring torrent of water rushing below him. At that precise moment, the lantern carrier leaps across the gap, lifts the light high over its head, lets out a malicious laugh, and blows out the light, leaving the poor peasant a long way from home, standing in pitch darkness at the edge of a precipice. This is a very common cautionary tale concerning the phenomenon. However, the igneous fetus was not always considered dangerous. There are some tales told about the will-o'-the-wisp being guardians of treasure, much like the Irish leprechaun, leading those brave enough to follow them to shore reaches. Other stories tell of travellers getting lost in the woodland and coming upon the will-o'-the-wisp, and depending on how they treated the will-o'-the-wisp, the spirit would either get them lost further in the woods or guide them out. That's more like what I'm thinking of. Yeah. Also related, the pixie light from Devon and Cornwall. I love Cornwall. Is most often associated with the pixie, who often has pixie-led travellers away from the safe and reliable route and into the bogs with glowing lights. Like poltergeists, they can generate uncanny sounds. They were less serious than their German Weisefrauenkind, frequently blowing out candles on unsuspecting courting couples or producing obscene kissing sounds. I really gotta find out why it keeps doing that. Who knows what we're up to? Unsuspecting courting, okay. Or producing obscene kissing sounds, which were always misinterpreted by parents. Pixie light was also associated with lambent light, which the Old Norse might have seen guarding their tombs. In Cornish folklore, pixie light also had associations with a cult pixie. A cult pixie is a pixie that has taken the shape of a horse and enjoys playing tricks such as neighing at the other horses to lead them astray. It's a pixie horse. Any horse with character, a pixie horse. Anyway, in Guernsey, the light is known as the Feuerberlangra, or rolling fire, and is believed to be a lost soul. On being confronted with the spectre, tradition prescribes 2 remedies. The first is to turn one's cap or coat inside out. This is the effect of stopping the Feuerberlangra in its tracks. The other solution is to stick a knife into the ground, blade up. The Feuer, in an attempt to kill itself, will attack the blade the-wisp, also known as the spunky, in the Scottish Highlands, where it would take form of a link boy, a boy who carried a flaming torch to light the way for pedestrians in exchange for a fee. Interesting. Or else simply a light that always seemed to recede in order to lead unwary travellers to their doom. Always. The spunky had also been blamed for shipwrecks at night after being spotted on land and mistaken for a harbour light. Other tales of Scottish folklore regard these mysterious lights as omens of death or ghosts of once living human beings. They often appeared over lochs or on roads along which funeral processions were known to travel. A strange light sometimes seen in the Hebrides is referred to as the Dionysiath or fairy light, though there was no formal connection between it and the fairy race. No formal connection. Alright, Oceania. The Australian equivalent known as the Min Min lights. Oh, Min Min lights. Yeah, I suppose Min Min lights could be a will-o'-the-wisp. They seem markedly different to me. Anyway, it's reportedly seen in parts of the outback after dark. The majority of sightings are reported to have occurred in the Channel Country region. Stories about the lights can be found in Aboriginal myth predating Western settlement of the region and have since become part of the wider Australian folklore. Indigenous Australians hold the number of sightings has increased alongside the increasing immigration of Europeans into the region. According to folklore, the lights sometimes followed or approached people and have disappeared when fired upon, only to reappear later on. Yeah, that's more what I thought, that they would the Min Min lights I thought would come towards you, whereas I feel like a will-o'-the-wisp goes away from you. Tiny distinctions, semantics, they're still lights. Alright, natural explanations. Here we go. In modern science, it is generally accepted that the will-o'-the-wisp phenomena are caused by the oxidation of phosphorine, diphosphorine, and methane. These compounds produced by organic decay can cause photon emissions. Since phosphine and diphosphine mixtures spontaneously ignite on contact with the oxygen in air, only small quantities of it would be needed to ignite the much more abundant methane to create ephemeral fires. Furthermore, phosphine produces phosphorus pentoxide as a byproduct, which forms phosphoric acid upon contact with water vapor, which can explain viscous moisture, sometimes described as accompanying ignis fatuus. The idea of the will-o'-the-wisp phenomena being caused by natural gases can be found as early as 1596. 1596, as mentioned in the book of Ghosties and Spirits Walking by Night, and of strange noises. Craigs and sundry forewarnings which commonly happen before the death of men, great slaughters and alterations of kingdoms by Ludwig Lavater. Is that seriously one long name? Wow. In the chapter called That Many Natural Things Are Taken to Be Ghosts. This is a quote from him by Ludwig Lavater. Many times candles and small fires appear in the night and seem to run up and down. Sometimes these fires go alone in the night season, and put such as see them as they travel by night in great fear. But these things, and many such like, have their natural causes. Natural philosophers write that thick exhalations are out of this earth and are kindled mines full of sulphur and brimstone, if the air enter unto it, as it lieth in the holes and veins of the earth, will kindle on fire and strive to get out. That's all written in old English, so I feel like I did pretty well there. Just saying. In 1776, Alessandro Volta first produced that natural electronic phenomena like lightning interacting with methane marsh gas may be the cause of ignis fatuus. This was supported by the British polymath Joseph Priestley in his series of works, Experiments and Observations on Different Kinds of Air, in 1772 to 1790, and by French physicist Pierre Bertholon de Saint-Lazare in L'électricité des météores, 1787. Early critics of the marsh gas hypothesis often dismissed it on various grounds, including the unlikeliness of spontaneous combustion and the absence of warmth in some observed igneous fatuus, the odd behaviour of igneous fatuus receding upon being approached, and the differing accounts of ball lightning, which was also classified as a kind of igneous fatuus. An example of such criticism is the following of the American anthropologist John J. Owens in folklore from Buffalo Valley in 1891. This is a name that is sometimes applied to a phenomenon, or perhaps more frequently called the jack-o'-lantern or will-o'-the-wisp. It seems to be a ball of fire varying in size from that of a candle flame to that of a man's head. It is generally observed in damp, marshy places, moving to and fro, but it has been known to stand perfectly still and send off scintillations. As you approach it, it will move on, keeping just beyond your reach. If you retire, it will follow you. That these fireballs do occur and that they will repeat your motion seems to be established, but no satisfactory explanation has yet been offered that I have heard. Those who are less superstitious say that it is ignition of the gases rising from the marsh. But how a light produced from burning gas could have the form described and move as described, advancing as you advance, receding as you recede, and at other times remaining stationary without having any visible connection to the earth, is not clear to me. This man doesn't know how gas works. However, the apparent retreat of ignis fatuus upon being approached might be explained simply by the agitation of air by the nearby moving objects causing the gases to disperse. This was observed by the very detailed accounts of several close interactions with ignis fatuus published in early year 1832 by Major Louis Blesson after a series of experiments in various localities where they were known to occur. Of note, in his first encounter with ignis fatuus in marshland between a deep valley and the forest Korbritz, Neumark, Germany, Blesson observed that the water was covered by an iridescent film, and during the daytime bubbles could be observed rising abundantly from the certain areas. At night, Blesson observed bluish-purple flames in the same areas and concluded that it was connected to the rising gas. He spent several days investigating the phenomenon, finding it dismay that the flames retreated every time he tried to approach them. He eventually succeeded and was able to confirm that the lights were indeed caused by ignited gases. The British scientist Charles Tomlinson, on certain low-lying meteors, describes Blesson's experiment as thus. On visiting the spot at night, the sensitive flames retired as the Major advanced, but on standing quite still they returned, and he tried to light a piece of paper at them, but the current of air produced by his breath kept them to a greater distance. On turning away his head and screening his breath, he succeeded in setting fire to the paper. He was also able to extinguish the flame by driving it before him to be part of the ground where no gas was produced. Then applying a flame to the place where the gas issued, a kind of explosion was heard over 8 or 9 square feet of the marsh. A red light was seen, which faded to blue flame about 3 feet high, and thus continued to burn with an unsteady motion. As morning dawned, the flames became pale, and they seemed to approach nearer and nearer the earth until at last they faded from sight. Blesson also observed the differences in the colour of heat in the flame in the different marshes. The ignis fatuus in Malabane, Upper Silesia, now as Poland, could be ignited and extinguished and were unable to burn pieces of paper or wood shavings. Similarly, the ignis fatuus in other forests in Poland created pieces of paper, then wood shavings, with an oily viscous liquid instead of burning them. Blesson also accidentally created ignis fatuus in the marshes of Bordeaux-Westerlo, Germany, while launching fireworks. One attempt to replicate the ignis fatuus under laboratory conditions was in 1980 by British geologist Alan A. Mills of Leicester University, though he did succeed in creating a cool glowing cloud by mixing crude phosphane and natural gas. The colour of the light was green, and it produced copious amounts of acrid smoke. This was contrary to most eyewitness accounts of ignis fatuus. As an alternative, Mills produced in 2000 that ignis fatuus may instead be cold flames. These luminescent pre-combustion halos that occur in various compounds are heated to just below ignition point. Cold flames are indeed typically bluish in colour, as the name suggests. They generate very little heat. Cold flames occur in a wide variety of compounds, including hydrocarbons, including methane, alcohols, aldehydes, oils, acids, and even waxes. However, it is unknown if cold flames occur naturally, though a lot of compounds which exist in cold flames are the natural byproducts of organic decay. A related hypothesis involves the natural chemiluminescence of phosphine. In 2008, the Italian chemist Luigi Calciacelli and Paolo Boscietti attempted to recreate Mills' experiments. They successfully created a faint cold blue light by mixing phosphate with air and nitrogen. The glow was still greenish in colour. Sorry, not blue, greenish. As Calciacelli and Boscietti noted that under the low light conditions, the human eye could not easily distinguish between the colours. Furthermore, by adjusting the concentrations of the gases and environment conditions, temperature and humidity, it was possible to eliminate the smoke and smell, or at least render it to undetectable levels. Calciacelli and Boscietti also agreed with Mills that the cold flames could also be a plausible explanation for other incidents of ignis fatuus. In 1993, Professor Durr and Passenger proposed that some ignis fatuus may be geologic in origin, piezoelectrically generated under tectonic strain. The strains that move faults would also heat up the rocks, vaporizing salts, silicon or arsenic may also produce electricity, channeled up to the surface through the soil via a column of vaporized water that was somehow appearing as earth lights. This would explain why the lights appear electrical, erratic, or even intelligent in their behavior. The will-o'-the-wisp phenomena may occur due to the bioluminescence of various forest-dwelling microorganisms and insects. The eerie glow... The eerie glow emitted from certain fungal species such as the honey fungus during chemical reactions to form white rot could be mistaken for the mysterious will-o'-the-wisp or foxfire lights. There are many other bioluminescent organisms that could create an illusion of fairy lights, such as fireflies. Now, I have my own story about fireflies, and I think they are far too common to be seen as a phenomenon. Not that they're not phenomenal, I love them, but they were abundant. Light reflecting off larger forest-dwelling creatures could explain the phenomena of the will-o'-the-wisp moving and reacting to other lights. The white plumage of barn owls may reflect enough light from the moon to appear as a will-o'-the-wisp, hence the possibility of the lights moving, reacting to other lights, etc. The Ignis Fatuus sightings are rarely reported today. The decline is believed to be the result of the draining and reclamation of swamplands in recent centuries, such as the formerly vast fenlands of eastern England, which now have been converted to farmlands. That's disappointing. In literature, I love literature. In literature, the will-o'-the-wisp sometimes has a metaphorical meaning describing hope or a goal that leads on but is impossible to reach, or something that finds sinister or confounding. In the book 1x 9 of John Milton's Paradise Lost, lines 631 to 642, Satan is compared to a will-o'-the-wisp when he leads Eve to the tree of knowledge and good and evil. And I quote, "A flame which oft they say some evil spirit attends, hovering and blazing with delusive light, misleads the amazed knight, wander from his way to bogs and mires, and oft through the pond or pool were swallowed up and lost from succour far." Two will-o'-the-wisps appear in John and Wolfgang Goethe's story The Green Snake and the Beautiful Lily. They are described as lights which consume cold and are capable of shaking gold pieces again from themselves. Emily Dickinson's Those Dying Then, a poem about an absence of God and the abdication of belief, closes with the lines, "Better an ignis fatuus than no illum at all." Oh, I like that. Better a will-o'-the-wisp than no light at all. Better the will-o'-the-wisp, a willow-wisp, better a willow-wisper than no light at all. It is seen in Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre when Jane Eyre is unsure as a candle or a will-o'-the-wisp. Mother Carey wrote a popular 19th poem called The Will-o'-the-Wisp. The will-o'-the-wisp makes an appearance in the first chapter of Bram Stoker's Dracula as the Count, masquerading as his own coach driver, takes Jonathan Harker to his castle in the night following the night. When Harker asks Dracula about the lights, the Count makes reference to the common folk belief about the phenomenon by saying that they mark where the treasure is buried. In Lewis Carroll's The Hunting of the Snark, the term is part of the description of the snark. The first is the taste, which is meagre and hollow but crisp, like a coat that is too tight in the waist, with the flavour of the will-o'-the-wisp. Oh, I like that. The Will-o'-the-Wisp was the anonymous author of The Paper Lanterns for Pussycats, published in 1843 by Smith and Elder Co., London. That anti-tractarian skit, the hero, the Reverend Hilary Oriel, writes an account of his friend Clement Loyal, of his church. In J.R.R. Tolkien's work, The Lord of the Rings, the will-o'-the-wisps are present in the dead marshes outside of Mordor. When Frodo Baggins and Samwise Gamgee make their way through the bogs, the spindly creature Gollum tells them not to follow the lights, meaning the will-o'-the-wisps. He tells them that if they do, they will keep the dead company and have little candles of their own. That's nice. The Inky Punk. The Inky Punk, the name for a will-o'-the-wisp in the southwest of England, as archived, achieved fame as a magical beast in J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter series. I do not remember this. In the books, a Inky Punk is a one-legged, frail-looking creature that appears to be made of smoke. It is said to carry a lantern and mislead travellers. The children's fantasy series, The Spiderwick Chronicles by Holly Black and Tony my bad, includes the will-o'-the-wisps. They are listed in other Spiderwick's Guide to Fantastical World around you. In the series, the will-o'-the-wisps are described as fat fireflies that lead travellers astray. In German fantasy novel The Never-Ending Story, begins. Fantastico and a will-o'-the-wisp goes to ask the childlike empress for help against the nothing, which is spreading over the land. The film based on the book does not contain the will-o'-the-wisp. Unfortunate. Civil War Confederate soldier and author Sam Watkins writes in his war memorial co-hatched about witnessing jack-o'-lanterns, ignis fatui, while standing watch late one night near Corinth, Mississippi in early October 1862. American historical novelist Franz Victor ends his poem A Letter with, "We tread on thorns where we saw only roses and find an ignis fatuus in a star." Alright, there is like a lot here, like music and visual media, and then, alright, we're nearly done, let's just keep going. In for a penny, in for a pound. In classical music, one of Franz Liszt's most challenging piano studies, the Transcendental Etude No. 5, known for its flighty and mysterious quality, bears the title Fugues Folles, the French term for the will-o'-the-wisp. The phenomenon also appears in Canción del Fugato, Song of the Will-o'-the-Wisp, in Manuel Fowler's ballet El Amor Brujo, later covered by Miles Davis in the Will-o'-the-Wisp sketches of Spain in Rodrigo and Hammerstein's The Sound of Music. The main character, Maria, is described as a will-o'-the-wisp in the song Maria. The German name of the phenomenon, Erklicht, has been the name of a song by the classic composer Franz Schubert as the song Winteres. Additionally, the first solo album of electronic music, Klaus has the name Irrlicht, part seemed to predict Brazil, the Damnation of Faust, is entitled Menace de Faust's Minuet of the Will-o'-the-Wisp. Finally, the second movement of Edward Dowell's Woodland Sketches is titled Will-o'-the-Wisp and reflects another composer's portrayal of the phenomenon as mysterious. The 2016 album Sorceress by Swedish band Obeth contains the track Will-o'-the-Wisp, using the term wisp as a short term for whispering. Several bands have written songs about referring to the will-o'-the-wisp, such as Magnolia Electric Company, Virgil Dugan, Leon Russell, and Steve Howe. The will-o'-the-wisp is also referring to the song Maria and The Sound of Music, Part 3, Scene 12 of Bella Rise. The Damnation of Faust is in turn the Meadows to Faust Minuet of the Will-o'-the-Wisp. The Will-o'-the-Wisp opening track on the Pet Shop Boys 2020 album, Hotspot. The Pet Shop Boys 2020 album, is that right? In which the narrator, Neil Tennant, describes visions of a phantom lover from the past riding on an elevated train overhead. That doesn't really sound like a will. Anyway, visual media. The will-o'-the-wisp phenomena have appeared in numerous computer games, such as Castlevania, RuneScape, Ultima, EverQuest, the Quest for Glory series, and the Elder Scrolls series, and tabletop games including Dungeons and Dragons, Magic the Gathering, Small World Underground, frequently referring to folklore of the phenomenon misleading and harming travelers. The Final Fantasy series also pays tribute to the tradition of a will-o'-the-wisp being a lantern-carrying individual with the Tonberry creature. The will-o'-the-wisp is also a monster in the Chrono Cross ether that moves away from the character as they approach or follows them when they walk away. It is seen as the Ares relating to the dead. In the Pokemon game series, the man, remember the ghosts in Mario? Yeah, that just reminded me of that. When you walk away, you turn around, they stop. Yeah, anyway. They walk away, they seen as Ares related to the dead. In Pokemon game series, the move Will-o'-the-Wisp can inflict a burn on the opponent as it often lied by ghost types. The character of the Wisp from the Animal Crossing series is also named after the Will-o'-the-Wisp and references the phenomenon by being a ghost. In the Mana series, Wisp is one of the 8 the Mana spirits representing an element of fire. In the Secret of Evermore, a spin-off of the Mana series, the Will-o'-wisps are small flame enemies located in a swamp area that move erratically toward the player. In television, the Will-o'-the-Wisp appeared as a short cartoon series in BBC TV's 1980s, voiced by Kenneth Williams. In Lost Girl, Season 1, Episode 2, Bowen Kenzie made a will-o'-the-wisp who appears as a shaggy hobo and uses blue fire, foxfire, to confuse trespassers in his forest home. The Will-o'-the-Wisp is also the name of the 13th series of one of Disney's channels, So Weird, in which one of the main characters, Jack, is possessed by a will-o'-the-wisp while visiting a ghost town to Marfa, Texas. The Disney Pixar short matter of a ghost light features the will-o'-wisp, aptly named the ghost light, described as a glowing orb of blue light. The will-o'-wisp plays a prominent role in the Disney Pixar film Brave. Break from the usual characterization, these will-o'-the-wisps appear benevolent, or at least neutral in nature, and are hinted to be spirits of the dead who aid living by leading them towards their destinies. Towards my destiny. Will-o'-the-wisp, renamed Isarabi, is also the name of the reddish ship owned by Dredigan in the Japanese anime The Mobile Suit Gundam Iron-Blooded Orphans. Alright. Reported site locations. And then there's just a list of everywhere in the world, so I think we might be done, because then it's just see also in notes. So there's places such as New Brunswick, Saskatchewan, Missouri, Texas, North Carolina, Arkansas, Oklahoma, North Carolina, Texas, Michigan, Uruguay, Argentina, Thailand, Bengal, Norway, Sweden, Finland, Italy, Ireland, England, the UK, the Netherlands, and Outback Australia for the Min Lights. Alright, that's gonna do it for the reading of the Wikipedia article. I hope that Schyler and Ashley and you are feeling nice and calm and sleepy. Alright. Good night. Sleep well. Good night. Sleep well. Good